sacrifice they have to make, even if you don't counterplay, makes them less comfortable and puts you in a more advantageous position. And with the way all three matches went yesterday, ET, all you need is a tiny little advantage to potentially win a game and take control of the series.
Mm-hmm. And I do like that they turned the draft around for the Leshrac. I think that hero looked really great in KXY's hands. Just something to open up the map that your Primal Beast, unfortunately, isn't able to do for your team anymore, because your offlaner is another killer, another one who is very effective at killing, but doesn't help you when it comes to buildings or objectives. So giving KXY some more agency in this game, definitely like it. But I don't know, it's really tough, because you are basically saying here, do we steal the carry here for Yuma and then put him at a disadvantage? Or do we lead with our 4 position, say, okay, 5 Rat, you get your Void. We know what you're doing, but we can't do anything about it. So instead, we're going to try and go in our own direction. And then Yuma has to play versus 2 more Respect bans. They pick up the Faceless Void, though, then they are 100% banning out Morphling. But here we go, 5 Rat. Is the plan going to work for you? And yeah, Rubik, of course, classic counter versus Jakiro and Undying. And there's your Void. And then there's going to be your Morphling ban. And 5 Rats still end up very happy.
They've got so much to throw into that Chrono, and yeah, as you say, the Rubik's a nice little counter, and even if it's not the primary target for him to steal, he could take a spell from just about anybody in this lineup and still be feeling pretty good. Maybe the Faceless Void, someone you kind of avoid with the spell steal, but the rest of the lineup, he's going to be getting something pretty damn valuable. That, however, ET, is not the Morph ban just yet. They actually take the Naga Siren out first, which is kind of the other option, right? If it wasn't the Morphling, the DNM, or excuse me, not the DNM, the Yuma Naga Siren could have been a problem. So, solid stuff. Meanwhile, for SG, ban on the Lina, just trying to protect that mid lane matchup, right? They already got the Leshrac, so have to do their best to protect it.
And I do really wonder, because I feel like letting the Morph through is a mistake, but if they end up not going for the ban there, can only imagine they're going to look at another very big Yuma hero where he's just going to farm and then kind of look the other way. I don't feel like a peel ban is going to feel too great, but that's where in a very similar situation, it could be drafted for SG, though, where you're versus Skyreth Mage, versus an Undying. You have to be a little bit careful, but no.
Okay.
There's the Morphling ban. Makes sense. They pick up the best 2 carries versus Faceless Void because they can afford to. I mean, what a, I don't know, painfully well-executed draft plan here from 5 Rat. I mean, it just makes sense. And of course, they can afford to do this because they have last pick. You know, that is the first step in any of these draft battles, but it still just feels dirty. When you see it happening in motion, you know, it just feels like SG just aren't going to be happy no matter what they end up going for. And well, Yuma, what do you want to play? They kind of, you're going to have to stick to your guns here. This is where in that previous position, they did just go for, I think, a TA, and then you could look to out-tempo him in the same way that Wolf Team out-tempoed you, which I wouldn't honestly hate, but it's just a matter of what I think they want to go versus the Undying Skyreth Mage. That's probably going to be step 1 here for SG. While 5 Rat, they just want a pretty normal, easy-to-play Kits hero. And they go for Clinks. Okay, we've seen one other Clinks in this tournament so far. Not a popular hero, and someone who will just die in Chronos for the first 30 minutes of the game. And then you get 4k HP, and then things might actually start to change a little bit. But SG still refused to play for early timings. This is going to be a very late game already, it feels like, from the outset.
The only thing that could potentially change this here is very much dependent on Kits' hero. So, well, what do they want to go for? They do, I think, need still some very reliable damage. The Skyreth and the Jakiro can dish out some nice stuff with the Chronosphere setup, but without it, their output's going to be a little bit more fluctuating, so we'll have to see. Because Kits has had a lot of his heroes banned out already, right? I mean, basically half the bans in this entire draft from the SG side were targeting him, so I don't know. The Ember, I think, is still kicking around here.
Ember, Queen of Pain, those are probably your top 2, even though last time we saw the Queen of Pain versus Omni, you know, maybe just a little bit less effective, but maybe Kits doesn't go 4-4-0. Maybe get some points up in Scream of Pain. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a nice spell.
Yeah, maybe. But no, I think regardless of what they want, it is most likely just going to be something to draw versus the Leshrac. They could even turn the draft around and go for, let's say, a Puck if they're really afraid of their lack of disables, which, again, they kind of are missing without the Faceless Void, but that's probably the beginning and the end of their considerations here, because you get a Linkens on Puck, you're pretty unkillable in this game.
Whoa.
And they go for Storm Spirit. Well, a hero that has not been successful in the tournament so far, but well, that's your draw versus Leshrac. That's your initiator whenever you're in the downtime of the game, and that's a friend for Merlin to play with. So I do like it, but again, very low success rate. We have seen, I think, 6 or 7 storms at this rate, and I think they're all losses. I really don't think this hero is as good as he was before, but that's where he is simply fulfilling a role that the lineup needs him to do. He might not be the best at his job, but he will do it.
Yeah, I mean, he will still accomplish what is needed unless he gets absolutely destroyed in lane. So you have that going for you. But, you know, as this game goes later, which ET we're starting to, or we're thinking that it would, how well does the Storm continue to scale, I think is going to be the question here for 5-Rat. Because you really are just trying to avoid a scenario where you become entirely dependent on DNM, both in terms of damage and in terms of initiation.
No, for sure. And honestly, it's going to be fun to watch Yuma play around on this Clinks. It always is, especially because LTH is a ranged force, so you know those stacks are going to be there. But it is a question of whether or not they can get that snowball rolling because, of course, 5-Rat have the best team fight lineup pretty much humanly possible with kits sprinkled on top, you know, making his own solo plays probably. But that's where DNM very rarely has he dropped the ball in this Faceless Void. It's going to be a very scary game. And, of course, versus the Leshrac, all of your buildings are under just a little bit more pressure. You're constantly going to be playing against that timer of the Edict just a little bit more, and maybe that'll be strong enough for the 4 core of SG to actually move around the map. But again, it feels like a 4 Protect 1, and if Oscar and KXY drop the ball, I mean, 5-Rat are going to look fantastic. But if they are able to win those early fights, if they're able to make it happen with Yuma showing up very sparingly or even just not at all, then SG has looked pretty great today.
It's a strategy that did allow SG to pull through that lower bracket final series with some difficulties, some complications, right? It was not even remotely close to an easy game plan to pull off, but they did it. They were able to sort of effectively out Wolf Team, and now they're trying a similar strat here against 5-Rat, but well, the 5-Rat proved yesterday that they were kind of capable of dealing with some of that 4 Protect 1 in those situations as well, so it's a bold move, ET. I mean, it's the opening game of best of 5, so if you were going to try something, you know, now's probably a good time for it.
And we'll have to see. Already getting out onto the map. Just making sure we get these nice wards. And both very defensive positions. Neither mid laner really wanting to get sniped out here. Even though if SG do find the confidence across the river, they can, you know, nudge themselves in the tree. And if it's not on that side, then they can make a pretty appropriate guess. But until then, very quiet start. Also, really like this defensive vision. It's either here or it's here on the ramp or it's here on that little, I like to call it the infamous spot because I think they did it first, but very good vision scouting out the 4 position, rotating to the mid lane, especially once Kits inches closer to that level 6 mark. You're always going to see a rotation from the 4. So just already being very preemptive to secure the Storm's lane.
And yeah, you know, I'm sure, apologies if there's some team or player out there who, you know, was doing it first, but Infamous are the first team either one of us really saw doing it consistently, so for now, they get to have the credit for it. And Oscar, well, this is not where you would like to be. He is getting slowed up pretty significantly. He is going to pop the uproar here, but that does mean he doesn't have any sort of play to get himself away. His teammates, though, went straight in for the kill onto Kits. So even though they lose Oscar, they do get first blood going their way. Supports actually grab each of those kills, though, so meh, but at least they were able to make that happen, getting across the river and punishing a Storm who has no means of defending himself.
Yeah, and usually it's a pretty hard kill just because he has 5 armor, but just kind of beat through it with the ranged heroes. And honestly, getting first blood on the Rubik feels quite nice. Just have a few more items, gets your sentry out immediately. Because of course, AB1, very annoying, already blocked up the large camp. And the large camp's going to be a huge point of contention here. It's where if you can get that stack off, if you can just pull it into the wave, then Oscar gets his levels for free, and suddenly your Primal Beast is in a very easy kill lane, even though we already know how much Primal Beast hates playing versus slows. So AB1 will be very effective up until, again, level 4. As we always talk about, it's the kill time. It's where no matter how many times you slow him, he can start anew with Onslaught. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, he's still just going to go stomping his way around looking for the kill. So, well, he's going to have to wait. And if you're 5 route, you're trying to make that wait as long as humanly possible, where you have to worry as... Well, they do have to worry about this a little bit. Kits has DC'd in that middle lane, so pause comes through. He's already attempting the reconnect, though, so hopefully this is just a quick and easy reconnect to deal with some lag, and then we can get back underway. SG say that they're ready to go, so... Well, just looking to see. Are they stable enough? Is Kits feeling it, or... See reconnect attempt 2, but while we wait for him, ET, this mid matchup here, right? We've already seen KXY try once on the split earth there, wasn't able to hit it. I mean, if Kits dances his way around those stuns and avoids that, he should be pretty solid to farm in this lane, right?
No, for sure. It's where you can't really ever force him out too hard. It's also where once you get a stick, you kind of know what's happening at this point. It's where both sides can really make very efficient trades. Once Kits hits level 3, of course, then you just do the pull into Remnant, and you get 2 overloads, and you hit him, and then just ends up being pretty nice HP for the mana. But that's where dodging out those stuns is the only skill thing that KXY needs to do here. All he has to do is land split earths, and then you can turn that trade on its head. But until then, both these mid laners, they're too good. They know that level 1 spells ain't it for trading. It's not worth the mana. So we'll probably see him simmer down a little bit.
Yeah, I think at this point, the only time they're using any of these spells is really for last hits, because KXY... Oh, okay, he hits a stun there, but prior to that, the stuns that he wasn't hitting onto Kits were still hitting like the ranged creeps most of the time, so feels like it's, I'm going to get a last hit, and if you're standing in it while I get that last hit, great, but otherwise I don't really care.
No, up until this point, though, KXY doing a really good job of actually fighting for denies, though. Something Kits, again, once he's level 3, you can actually make that punish happen, where if KXY gets too far forward, you pull him into a creep wave, but until then, got his bot a little bit sooner, doing some good zoning as well. Very nice start to the Lashes lane.
Pretty good, just trying to get that damage in, and, well, Kits is starting to drop a little bit, but the bottle's coming out just in time, so he should be really A-okay in this lane. In the meantime, ET... Well, take a look at how top is going here, because Prada on the Omni Knight, right, trying to sort of emulate the KJ strat from their previous series, but it's going to be a little bit more awkward, because even with Heavenly Grace, the Clink still is not the tankiest of individuals here, so you got to be careful, because this is still an Undying lane, and they can do things like this. I was going to say maybe they wait for the Tombstone, but they don't need to. Prada's just too far forward, and there's the immediate punish.
Yeah, and in this lane as well, you just have so much more base damage to work with if you're the Undying. Of course, he's got a ton of stolen strength, but it's also where fighting for denies is always going to be very difficult for the Clinks. It's simply something that the hero does not do. You can get lasses with Shearing Arrows, but you can't do anything else. It's also where Yuma is going to want a good bit of soul XP, which is going to put pressure on his Omni Knight. Of course, Omni kind of needs his full kit, but oh my goodness, the damage. In speed, he always does this. He always prioritizes at least one value point with the Soul Rip, and in doing so, you should know you don't have the slow coming in from the Tombstone or the zombies, but you end up just outputting so much damage so quickly.
More than your laning opponent is sort of anticipating in most circumstances. As speaking of unanticipated, KXY, a very deep dive into the middle lane here. LTH is going to come in to clean it up afterwards because, oh, the Leshrac couldn't actually get it done, so... You still kill the mid laner. That's not a bad play overall from LTH. It's just the Leshrac going down first really makes that Kit's favorite. Now on the other side of the map, they're going after Oscar. DNM's going to be able to get him, so that's going to make the Storm's play sort of look even better, right? You punish the Leshrac, now you're putting pressure in the other lanes as well, and Storm's death is not really going to matter quite as much in comparison.
Yeah, and you also get to see kind of the brass that Kits has, because, again, they had the defensive ward. They knew the Rubik was coming, but he also knew that he could be brave in that situation, and then just caught the Lesh in a mistake. It's a pretty huge outplay, honestly. And sure, LTH does come back bottom, but now that you've left the lane, well, you lose control of both of your camps. AB1 gets back all of this control for DNM, and sure, Oscar's here. He's level 4, and yeah, well, it's happening, but... So you get it, he's running out of trample, and yeah, he just walks away.
Okay. Not a bad little move there in from DNM. It's still only 1 point in dilation, but enough slow for AB1 to just kind of walk it out, and he's got to be careful because that play can come his way repeatedly moving forward. But for now, he lives. Up in the top lane, though, Prada does not. The Omni going to get hit up a second time.
Yeah, just unfortunately punished. And again, speed in his Undying build. He's the only core Undying that likes to do this, but I feel like it might be time to start copying him because 2 points in Soul Rip, this is very rare, but nabs him the kills. It just ends up being such an obnoxious timing that not too many people are really capable of dealing with. Also, Merlin, of course, his hero is going to enable that build up from speed even more.
That's awkward. Middle lane, LTH makes the rotation in, got the lift, but KXY still misses on the splitter. So it's a good attempt from the Rubik. It's not really going to work out. He should still be set up to maybe stack some of these camps, however. So, yeah, he'll set up for either the Lesh or the Clinks in that manner. But they really were hoping for just sort of a quick kill to hit up kits again, but not going to be the case. Now there's a potential fight over the rune spawns here. Rune doesn't even actually spawn there. It's off to the other side as AB1. Well, he tried to contest it, but he walks into 2, and now he should very much be taken down here.
Yeah, gets unlucky. Really perfect rune for KXY as well. But okay,
Ooh,
6. He's going to use his mana here. Yeah, with Merlin. And I think they should have it. It's going to be at least 2 more zips, though. And then it might be a zip out now. Yeah.
Right. Kit's used all of his mana. KXY still pushing forward, though, but there's a TP in from AB1. This might be going a little bit too far. They get the stun onto the Skywrath, so they finish him off. But LTH is absolutely going to die. KXY, though, walks away, so all things considered, he should still be looked at as the winner in terms of that fight.
Yeah, and I think it's just where the Pulse Nova is a slightly more effective spell. Even though they're eyeing him up, they do have Glyph as well for the cart, but with the cart going down and what should be AB1 rotating out, I feel like mid lane should be a little bit of a simmer down here. Even though maybe one more attempt here with the Rubik, but aside from that, it's just kind of goading out more mana away from that Storm Spirit. But support's out of the lanes for so long.
Yeah.
Well, DNM and Speed, they're actually just absolutely fine. Get a lot of soul XP during this time. Kind of end up bullying their lane opponents as well. It did end up saving Oscar's lane a little bit, but still just absolute free farm for the Undying and Faceless.
Yeah, he's looking pretty damn good here, working towards some early drums, actually, on the Undying. So these smaller items, well, it's going to set them up for those fights that they've been starting to take over their past couple of series, right? Everybody just kind of floods a lane and starts bashing the hell out of each other, so having the drums will absolutely be helpful. As Oscar, are you sure you want to do that? Yeah, he's going to veer off course there. Not sure if that would have been the greatest of ideas.
Yeah, and great positioning from AB1, having the Ice Path to cancel out the Pulverize, just great stuff, but top lane, yeah.
Rod is not having fun.
Happens again. Yeah, just getting bullied by the Undying, and you did do this to yourself here. You know, you drafted after seeing it, but Speed always likes to do this. It's usually a split between just a very early Vlad's or a Holy Locket or the drums like this, but just getting the utility item, I bet him and AB1 are always talking about it before a game, what AB1 doesn't want and what they think is good, because they really are, I think, the theory crafters on the team.
Yeah, and, oh, theory's been pretty damn sound over the last couple of days here as Prada just TP's back up here. At this point, Yuma's kind of done with this lane. He's already shoving off into the jungle. He's got himself the Javelin. Not quite maxed out Burning Barrage, but he should be okay to farm for the near future, which means Prada can get some solo XP, right? That's going to be relatively useful. Try and get himself some levels. Of course, that's assuming that Speed doesn't just hunt him down alongside Merlin for the next couple of minutes.
Yeah, but sadly, it is just going to be him kind of watching the farm go by the wayside. He doesn't even have boots, but he'll get it eventually. But that's also if you're KXY. Bleshak wants to connect onto a target. He wants to look for somebody to kill. That's why he was bottom before, trying to look for that Faceless Void. But that's where, unfortunately, with how well this Undying's lane is going, he wants to gank the Undying, but until Oscar can actually get himself out of bottom and then they just bring absolutely everyone top, just instead think that 5-Rat are going to take these one lanes and then just keep on sitting in them. There's no reason for them to stop the farm.
Yeah, no pressure really being applied at the moment as DNM just got a Javelin of his own brought out to him, so the build kind of mirroring what we're seeing from the Clinks on the other side. Yeah, I don't know. If you're SG, you want to, I don't know, try and push some sort of tempo, because otherwise this is the only play that's possible to be made right now, is just Prada getting bullied over and over and over again. And this time, they might give the kill to the Storm, because Kits has made his way up here. He's going to be able to grab it. Oscar gets silenced and pulled in by the Vortex. And these TPs, each successive TP, slower than the last. So the reinforcements don't really get here in time. KXY is still going to try and force the fight, though, and does have the mana to try and force it, but he doesn't have the health to survive. Oh, boy. And now LTH, I mean, he's got Stolen Ball Lightning, so he should get out. Yeah. But that's a 3-for-1. That's a fight around your tower that you... Oh, my God. That you still lose is speed. Okay, now it's time to back up, but the man knows no fear.
Yeah, and because of the reactionary play from SG, up until that dive happened, SG were 4 heroes bottom. They were going to look for another kill onto DNM, but because they all have to TP top, and then it ends up being a botched play, not only do they spend, 300 gold on their TPs, but they give the rest of the lane back to DNM, who is still just free farming. So you lose a fight, you lose your tower, you lose all your TPs, and then your lineup just feels weird. It's almost like they have to smoke these cores to actually get themselves onto the right side of the map, because SG are scrambling right now for plays that are just not appearing in front of them.
And that's the thing, right? Especially this early in the game. If you don't go for the plays, fine, you can work with that. If you do go for the plays, fine, you can work with that too, but they have to hit. If you're just moving around and still not getting an attempt, then you're just wasting time, effectively, as Oscar onslaughts for about 6 feet and then stops, but he stops because he still needs to defend this tower, because your tier 1 is taking a lot of pressure, and ET, this team has a Leshrac on it, and their towers are the ones that are in danger of going down early.
No, it's just this middling territory where they aren't able to successfully make a play, and it's daytime. They might look for Merlin here, and a play on the rune is a play nonetheless, as Merlin still tries to get in. Look at Kits. Oh, you're so greedy and dead, God. But, well...
Chrono into macro. No, DNM, he's still taking too much damage there from the Pulse Nova, but look at Speed. Speed says, I would like to join the fight. Guardian Angel means nothing, because he does magic damage to them all, and they've only taken down the one. It's only Prada who's fallen. Oscar now goes down, though, and KXY tries to stun on top of himself. Speed was able to sidestep it, and they are going to get this Lesh kill as well. AB1 somehow grabs the double kill in there, so a multi-kill for your Jakiro's a very rare sight indeed, but they somehow salvage that, right? Storm gets greedy on the rune. Merlin gets picked off because there's just 4 heroes chasing him, but they still make it a 3-for-2.
I mean, just look at that macro pyre, dude. Like, oh my God.
Jeez.
It's so good. It actually just ends up carrying them through the team fight, but, now, sure, got 3 kills to your name. You did lose the Storm Spirit, which is still kind of sad for Kits, but aside from that, look, bottom. Oscar.
Okay.
Well, he's stomping. He's looking, and now, oh, nice onslaught, but they're going to try for it anyway. They just need the connection, and there you go. That's why they went for the Storm Spirit. Very easy kill with the Skyreth Mage.
And that's actually the interesting sort of aftermath of him zipping in and dying there. He did grab the haste rune. So he was able to put that rune to use, get himself onto Oscar, and find a kill that is largely going to make up for what he lost there in the river. So Kit's still doing okay. You take a look at his net worth, and it's not fantastic compared to Yuma and KXY, but he's close enough. He's in spitting distance ET. But then you can't have a conversation about low net worth cores without also noticing Oscar here, who is unbelievably broke.
Yeah, he doesn't have anything. He doesn't even have his first component for his BKB. He's really been shoved to the side here. Hasn't gotten any free farm as well after the laning stage, and a portion of that comes down to SG's refusal to make any plays towards this bottom tier 1, even though, hey, Chrono's down. You could probably just get that for free, and that's why they're pinging it out, but the rotation comes in so late that just feels ugly and overused. And SG have a nice smoke opportunity. Once it turns into nighttime, could see them immediately starting to wrap in on mid, but it's so behind the exchange that Kits casually just kills your mid tower. You're taking the scraps of the bottom tower with a 5-hero rotation where you're only farming 1 lane, and 5 out are just simply getting more net worth out of the map than you are.
Yeah, because DNM has just been chilling on this side of the map for a little while now. His Maelstrom's completed. He's got a component towards his BKB already. And on the other side, well, Yuma is keeping pace at least a little bit, right? His own Maelstrom's finished. He's got the Dragon Lance picked up, so he is going for maybe some smaller caliber items for the moment. But you see that Gleipnir queued up for him. Once he gets that, there is going to be significant threat from this Clinks in terms of kills, but the Gleipnir is kind of still a decent ways away.
No, it definitely is. And, well, there's your free pick. KXY shows for a second. Just use a few ultimates, chuck them out there. They're not the longest cooldowns in the world, so you can afford to do so. And back to the 2 lanes that we're going to keep on farming, because our opponents are not batting an eye at this. And sure, Yuma's farming in the jungle. He's farming the triangle. Oscar's got the bot lane. Nobody's shoving the Primal Beast out. But one core will always suffer in this setup. And sure, maybe once you get the BKB, you're going to swap spots. But until then, plays like that, it just feels like free picks onto the Leshrac, as well as Prada really being jerked around the map. This melee Omni Knight support, it's just not very slow. You have to get set up, and if you do overextend yourself like that, it is a very simple punish.
I mean, case in point, look at this play just here. Albino Zebra pushes out the lane, gets up to the tier 2. I think he hit it maybe one time with the Liquid Fire. This is 4 heroes coming up here to do what? To push a creep wave. There's no one actually here for them to fight anymore, and 5rat knew that that was going to be the reaction. Now they smoke up, and if they could find Yuma, this would be unbelievably valuable for them, but I'm not sure if they have the angle. I'm not sure if they'll have the time either, looking at the smoke timer, but they're still making their way down there. They do need detection, though, because they're going to run right into Yuma. They need to know that they see him. There's the dust, there's the silence, and there's going to be the kill.
Oh, and then their support, the TPs come in, but they didn't want to TP in the first place. Did steal Macro Pyre, but
Okay.
AB1 on the run. He is going to get Macro Pyre, but it's just a 5 position taken down. And that was them all running into your vision. That is where they already have the ward placed up on the high ground here. But it still feels like the reaction comes too slow out of SG. And again, you're playing in a single lane. So you have to go back. Your opponents have already farmed your side of the map, so now they're going to retreat to their side. And DNM's about to have a BKB. I mean, this guy's ready to go. The Faceless Void is ready to just sit in a Chronosphere. Doesn't matter if you get the Pulse Nova off. You don't have a Bloodstone or the workings of it on a KXY. It's where I think it's all down to Prada, really, to force the mistake out of 5rat.
And, you know,
And no.
they just smoked on a ward, and this is just... I don't know what this is. If you're 5rat, now you have a decision to make. Do you try to just avoid this entirely, or do they maybe try to push into it themselves? Because, I don't know. Actually, do they have a smoke? Because that's going to be the determining factor. They do have one. They've got a couple of dusts up here, too, so... I was going to say if they run into Yuma again, they could catch him. Yuma's just not involved, though. He's still farming in the jungle. So, will not be involved here, as that is going to be a rune picked up. KXY saved by the Heavenly Grace, and now they're going to try to turn. But Kit's getting healed. There's going to be the Chrono into the Macro Pyre. Guardian Angel comes through. That's going to reduce a little bit of the damage, but I'm not sure if it's going to be enough. Oscar's still dropping. He goes down. KXY will fall too, and now they're going to go in onto Prada. The Omni Knight has no way to defend himself here, as he will be run down, and, well... The macro side of the game ET is never the sexiest, but if you look at what 5rat just did, they sent AB1 top. They said, okay, TP up here. Then they go in onto the Clink's bottom. They say, okay, now TP back. You're not going to get here in time, but now you've burned your TPs. Now we can push exactly where and when we want. We know that you smoked because you smoked on a ward. They have absolute control of the map right now.
5rat's, they're just choreographing the map. They're just simply calling out the plays that are forced out of your opponents, basically, at this point. And they know what their best option is, and that's something that's so important. You're playing around their best choice, not necessarily your own in every situation, but you end up finding these kills and a lot of these opportunities because you're thinking like that. And now, you know, maybe it's time to chill out for a little bit, wait for Chrono, but you got a BKB on DNM, you have an Aegis on the Storm, Kits is going to start to ball out of control. Could be a mistake here, but they can get Prada and then simply walk back away. It just might be too free. And yep, even though they're underneath the ward, look at Oscar, though.
He's trying to force it. Get onto Merlin,
this
maybe.
really
The
what
Mystic
you
Flare,
want?
though, it's going to drop him so low. And he is still going to die. They have a stolen Tombstone out here, though, so That's kind of useful. They got through the Aegis. Can they lock the Storm down again, though? I don't know that they can. KXY is now frontlining when he absolutely can't afford to. And they're going to lose the GOAT. Now LTH is going to get pulled in. He's dying too, and that was not really worth trying to turn. If they could have just let Prada die and walked away, that would have been more favorable.
No, and you do get the Aegis, you know, that's fine, but it's an Aegis on Storm. You're going to use it to fight in the first place.
Right.
They just got exactly what they wanted again. And okay, DD Rune spawns up. Kits is probably just going to bottle it for himself, but I don't know, with how short these jumps have been from Kits, he actually has mana to fight, and oh well. Yuma, Gleipnir reveal. There you go. Sorry, AB1. Had to bite that one, but that is the one thing that can be said for SG, however. The Primal Beast, the Leshrac, they aren't the objective. Yuma with the Gleipnir, that's the name of the game. Yuma top net worth, that is what they're banking on at this point.
But now they got to play it a little bit carefully, because that Chrono's up in 5. They've got Mystic Flare. They're going to have AB1 up in a couple of seconds here, so they're going to be looking for a potential fight again. Tombstone's even back up here, so I don't know, ET. The guns are loaded. 5 rat. They're going to be looking to hit up on someone in SG. I do like that play. They pushed mid a little bit, but recognizing they're all up, they've got their spells, we don't really have vision, let's not greed out for a tier 1 tower.
Yeah, they know. Like you said, guns loaded. They're ready to just immediately start to punish you. And now, 4-man smoke. Storm doing his own thing. Yuma's eyeing him up right now, but that's where once they see him show in the mid lane, all they have to do is call where he's going to start farming next. But there are some very smart pings out coming from SG. They should be very aware now. Just not showing anybody bottom means that something is happening. 5rat have changed their rhythm. They should be top and they should be mid right now. It's how they play the entire game, but because they're not, they ease up off of that triangle. So a nice read from SG.
First time they're actually just able to sort of read their opponents and make the right call instead of getting read themselves, but there's still a potential smoke play going down here. They're going to see what spawns in the river rune-wise. Nothing, because it spawns on the other side. So Kits grabs the illusion, backs away, and everybody might just stand down. Although with the way Yuma's pushing forward, yeah, he wanted a fight. He gets the root, but Speed... Well, Speed was a little too ready to go there. That's Flesh Golem committed, but I think he had really anticipated that was going to be all of SG, not just the single Gleipnir.
Yeah. Also has the shard, so he's really not going to care too much. And hey, Prada. Just saying hi. Yeah. What's up? And okay.
Oscar going to charge his way in. There's your Pulverize, but they're not going to get this kill all that quickly. Speed just acting as the anchor, drops down a Tombstone. Oscar's going to start running out of BKB time, and DNM says, I would like to fight, please. Pushing his way forward. Silence in. Stolen Tombstone on the high ground, but there's going to be the Chrono deployed. Kits just zipped into it. That's a little bit awkward, and Yuma's hitting onto him, but Kits is able to pop the illusion. He's going to reset. Meanwhile, Oscar still stuck in the Macro Pyre, dropping low. Will he die? Yes, he will. They do find that. They've lost their 2 supports, though, on the 5-rat side, and Speed is not looking too hot here either. SG are going to be able to hold that fight, and I'll tell you what, ET, if Kits zips a little bit further, that fight looks incredible for 5-rat. Instead, well, they throw everything they've got out there, and they're the ones who are forced to retreat.
Yeah, and really, they are doing quite a lot of things in the team fight despite it looking so bad. They try to get the high ground vision, they get the ward sentry, but they're versus a stolen Tombstone, and they run away from their own, which results in your Undying not really feeling that strong. And then that early committal of the Flesh Golem ends up really coming back to bite you, because then once that brunt force of the actual team fight starts, well, you don't have Flesh Golem. It was used 10 seconds prior, just meaning that you don't have the HP to actually stick around, and then the Chrono is very unfortunate. If that Chrono maybe clips onto Yuma as well, it could look a little bit better, but Flanks gets to walk out, KXY gets to walk in, you're getting pulled apart by zombies, and you lose the majority of your lead off of that loss.
Yeah, it's hovering at somewhere between 2 and 3k at the moment in the aftermath of that fight, so not a good look here for 5-rat, but definitely recoverable. They go right back to farming at this point, so they are going to, as a whole, maintain a lead, but you take a look at the chart here, ET. We said for SG, the only hero that was really going to truly matter would be Yuma on this Clinks, and he is starting to pull away from everyone else.
It's starting to become very scary. And that's where, if he doesn't have to worry about being inside the chronosphere, if he can just rely on, especially his level 15, his level 20 talent, we said earlier, Lynx gets real tanky. He gets to the point where he gets a BKB, maybe a little bit later than some of these other heroes, starts having those super long BKBs coming into the mid game, and then maybe he just survives the chronosphere, BKBs after, and walks away. And then you have to be scared of every other power spike that Clinks naturally has. The Ag Shard, the 20 talent, the 25. It's where Clinks just always is on that upward curve. And sure, you've got Faceless Void. Your lineup doesn't scale too badly either, but it's where you are always concerned. Because Yuma, he's that guy that will just win the game for his team single-handedly if he has to. Very scary core player.
Not the kind of person that you want to be sort of staring at going into late game, that's for sure. So, 5 wrap. See if they try and get it in gear a little bit after maybe some item pickups, but what are they really close to? DNM is going to be finishing off the Mjolnir upgrade here, so going to make him a little bit more dangerous. Meanwhile, Speed is closing in on a BKB, but, well, SG are trying to close in on him. Oscar, though, deciding that's not a clean initiation. You're too close to the tier 2. You have no vision to the north here in this jungle, so probably for the better that they don't make that move. But now Kits has a DD and an Arcane Rune bottled, so I mean, you gotta look for some sort of engagement with this setup.
Oh, we got basically the S4, I guess S4 2.0, you know? It's not hasty D, but Arcane Rune DD, yeah. On Storm might be just as potent. But, again, the smoke is red. They're very aware, they're very defensive. They're saying if you're not showing bottom, you're not showing mid, what's happening? And that's where you start to realize that, well, SG, if your opponents are smoking and trying to get aggressive on you, well, SG can just hit buildings. They're very good at that. They can actually afford to just show up. And now mid lane is where the mistake could be made. The KXY needs to be very careful, but with LTH to back him up here and with the Ag Shard, they can really start to pull him out. And sure, power trade gets going, but you already claimed bottom tower. Now you're ahead of the exchange and you're getting this map out. You're very happy with your position on SG. You have forced a draw across the map and just waited out your opponent's smoke.
Starting to feel pretty good. Meanwhile, just over a minute added on that Roche timer. Minute 15 at this stage, so that is an objective both sides are going to start to look at here. Part of the reason why 5 Rats stay up top and secure this tower, because they can take the tower, they can take the outpost. It's going to be much harder to contest Roche if SG aren't just physically there already. But now, well, now what's the play, right? You moved onto your opponent's side of the map. Would love to just sort of maintain a position here and see if they come to you, but if you do that, as you said, ET, SG could just keep pushing, right? KXY is here. He could get some damage onto the tier 3, so are you willing to take that risk in order to maintain a favorable position?
Yeah, and that's why you see both sides are just so focused of keeping this mid lane in, because neither side can really afford to allow any creep pressure on those mid towers, but it's simply where 5 Rats push is not very good. Their offlaner doesn't help, their mid laner doesn't help. Faceless Void is also not the best building hitter. So SG, despite being very down in this game, really not that far. And most of this gold lead that has been clawed back has just been from the skeleton, from Yuma. But now look at this tier 3. Again, ahead of the exchange. You're going to get Glyph if you pop the Edict, but they even just decide to go slow. And your opponents are not reacting. That, though, is very fortunate. That is a very early Roche timer. And 5 Rat, well, it's so fast that I feel like SG, they need to smoke right now. Otherwise, they're going to miss out on this.
At this point, I'm not sure they even know that it's up. They're just trying to hit the tower. The glyph, though, should give them a clue. They glyphed, and you still don't see anyone. You have a high ground ward that spots nothing. Something is up. But I don't...
Now they give it up.
Yeah, they can't get it in time anyway.
Instead, they say, well, we're going to make this fortress bottom. We're going to ask you to come to us. And 5 Rats say, okay, fine. You guys are going to stay bottom. We're going to smoke up. We're going to sit on a high ground. We're going to sit on our ward sentry. And then a team fight is brewing.
Side smoked. Not quite on a collision course right now, though, as SG are backing themselves away. Yuma, though, isn't. Don't think that they really go in that direction, though. They're trying to push further to the east, take the outpost as they go. Not a bad call. But if they see Yuma clear out creeps here, I don't know.
Oh, Yuma.
Kits will zip in. He pops, though, so he should
He
know.
has dust. but he right-clicked. It was too fast. He actually thought it was just his A-click instead. He actually did pop just slightly before, but ends up being a non-factor. So 5-ret, they actually get to push off this wave very safely now, and SG are bottled back towards their side of the map.
Yeah, that would have been... Oh, that would have been something. But as you say, you've got to know to the, I mean, milliseconds there, right? Whether you pop on the right click or because you're close to someone. And for a Storm who was zipping, I don't really think that the vast majority make that call.
You can also just wait, I suppose, but, you know, trying to be fast, trying to think that, yeah, our opponents are just out of there. Didn't have the scan either. It was used much earlier on, but that's where, now that they've got this mid-wave in, DNM can actually focus on the mid-tower, as SG very appropriately got scared off of that situation. KXY just trying to slow things up. He has a blink dagger, so he can kind of react to the jump from 5-rat, but they're just going to keep the card alive, heal up DNM, he's going to time walk, just make himself as healthy as possible. And all we can see from SG is them try to get behind the waves here. And then, well, Merlin, he's looking over, but he feels like something's up and he starts to blink away, but without being able to get onto bottom too quickly here, and SG, they're running at this bottom tier 3 to try and make it happen. Question is, will it be fast enough? And will 5-rat just, again, feels like they kind of need to smoke here, but first TPs,
that's a lot of TPs. Chrono's down.
Got him.
Where's the follow-up? Team's got to get here. LTH trying to buy some time with telekinesis, and it does kind of work. Yuma is trying to walk away, and DNM does not have detection.
He's out. Oh, wow. The TPs just took too long, and we're in the wrong order. Merlin, who is second in line, didn't have dust on the Scarth Mage. He's sending it out now, but no, that is a very unfortunate timing. I think just a little bit too close to the tower. Ended up not planning out for them, and well, now no Chrono. Your best rat killer is now going to have to switch responsibilities with Kits, but Kits is much less likely to actually kill the Clinks, and if he's not careful, he spends a little bit too much time around him, uses too much mana as BKB, and your Storm could just straight up die to Yuma.
SG are looking for a fight. Smoke up, push their way across. Yuma links up with them. What can they find, though? Kits is going to go for the rune. They've got the lift, they've got the root, they've got the pulverize. There's no defensive play there whatsoever, and, well, Kit's got a little greedy. Merlin's going to get picked off here as well. Oscar will take that second kill, and that's exactly what SG were looking for. And at this point, ET, minute 40 on the timer, SG are in a good spot to just burn it through time.
Yeah, and they also know that this tier 2, well, who's going to defend it? Is it going to be AB1? Well, it might be once we get closer to the high ground, but this is free, and there is no glyph. Once they take a tier 3 tower, it will refresh, but this is a timing where Leshrac is just straight up punishing you for being in the same lobby as him. And now, Tomb gets placed. Oscar's a little bit far forward. He blinked really high up, but that's where they're looking. They kind of want to go towards bottom instead, because they already know 400 HP off. Should be able to get this for free. And little do they know that Storm doesn't have buyback for 25 seconds.
Oh, DNM's going to try to get in there. Oh my god, AB1 just gets blown up by the barrage.
And no spells from Jakiro. You didn't get a macro down.
Uh-oh.
Oh no.
They got the silence. DNM, he can't jump away. Do they have the right clicks? Well, not quite. Speed's able to heal his teammate up, so DNM avoids disaster there, although at this point, dying there would have used the Aegis, as opposed to now where he might not get to use it at all, and it might just time out.
Yeah, now they get this bot outpost, they get a free Rax, Aegis is gone in 30 seconds, and I don't think they're really going to want to smoke until the Jakiro's alive, which of course means that this Aegis is done. That's it. SG just kind of working their opponents around the map so effectively. Now Yuma's level 20, of course has the full data list, but also has a BKB, and this is that tipping point for Clinks where do you have enough damage to kill him? I mean, not if Omni's near him. I mean, even without the Omni, he's starting to become a beast of his own.
Yep. He's a very dangerous man who is going to have backup even if you do catch him out. So, 5-rat, they still need the perfect play. They still have the Chrono. They have so much damage to deploy into it, but their smoke, well, it's going to pop onto LTH. It's not quite the target they wanted, and Kits is going to try to zip forward looking for another. He gets onto Prada. He's trying to get onto Prada, but he doesn't have a whole lot of mana to work with. Doesn't matter. Still find the kill. And that's not a bad play, ET, but still just the two supports. Not backbreaking. SG are just going to wait out those death timers, and this is the other problem with 5-rat. You just gave up such a big lead. You got pushed so far back. none of their lanes are really in an advantageous position. I guess they could try to rotate top, but that's going to take time. But first, they need to defend DNM. He's dropping low. He's taken down. Kits is going to try to push onto the back line. They got the Mystic Flare onto Yuma, but he's going to activate his BKB, and he's just going to start turning and dishing out that damage. AB1 goes down, and your BKB doesn't really work if you don't pop it there, DNM. That's a bit of an unfortunate circumstance, but I don't think he knew Oscar was that close, and the blink kind of takes him by surprise.
It certainly does, and then you look also at his inventory and you say to yourself, well, DNM only has a BKB. He only has a Mjolnir. He hasn't found his next item in progression, and even if he gets the Scotty, I mean, you want a longer fight versus these heroes? It just doesn't seem like it makes too much sense here, and a lot of that agency has just been robbed from you. And of course, with the Aegis timing out, now we look at that Roche timer, and I think, honestly, the earlier it is, the more SG can continue to ride this wave up.
Yeah, that's minute 30 would be the fastest respawn at this point, so they're going to keep an eye on it. They're also trying to subtly maneuver their way top at speed. He's not going to stick around that long. Quickly getting himself away, and, well, looking at the items here, you know, speed's queued up in AC, but that's several thousand gold away. Kits, I think he just got Shard, and yeah, he's got Scepter too, so he just picked up that. That's a pretty nice little play to try and maybe catch some people out, set up for DNM, but DNM himself, he is actually changing the ability T. This first ulti orb that was originally for the Scotty is now actually going to be going towards a Linken's. The only problem is that still doesn't help you with any damage. Maybe you live longer, but
it's the wrong direction. It's where I think really the best damage dealing tool they could get is probably an Ags on AB1, because at this stage, you're just not building up fast enough on these cores. You're getting outpaced. In SG, they're going the exact opposite direction. They're getting hexes. They're getting 3 hexes. It looks like in Q, even the Primal Beast has turned his build around to make it happen. And then, of course, sure, this Linken Sphere is going to feel nice for you to not die, but I don't know. It just feels like that agency has just left 5-Rat in its entirety, and now they're playing at the whims of SG. And, well, Roche in 3 seconds, we'll get our answer here, but another smoke goes by the wayside. 5-Rat don't connect on this one either, and it will be a middle-of-the-pack Roche, so really isn't going to favor either side. But at the same time, SG are no longer scared. They're also getting quite a few of these Aeon discs, meaning, of course, that, well, unless you have a Nullifier in Q, DNM, these supports that you would want a Chrono or you'd even like to kill on the sideline, well, those aren't really targets either. It's where you're suddenly finding a target that is continuously shrinking as this game goes on.
There's the Aeon Disc for LTH. Prada, meanwhile, is closing in on Wraith Pact, which, okay, yeah. We looked at this SG draft DT, and it didn't have a clear-cut Wraith Pact builder, so we thought we just wouldn't get one, but it's taken Prada a hell of a long time, though, right? 38 minutes before he picks it up, but he's got one. So Rubik's not an easy kill. Everyone's going to be taking reduced damage. The Hex was completed by the Clinks, and, well, I don't know. You've got some BKBs, right? But once those BKBs wear off, if the fight's not over, 5-Rat are just going to get wiped out.
Yeah, the thing keeping them in this game, though, and I think keeping their heads still in it, is that their team fight potential is infinite. They have Exodia. It is Storm Zip into Chrono, into Ice Path. They can bop you, but it's just a matter of whether or not they hit that execution. And then maybe the game just changes on its head. You give farm to DNM. He actually gets to farm after a team fight. Because right now, with this silence across the map, nothing is happening. And DNM is getting scared out of making it of these plays because he is very aware that this Chronosphere is the beginning and the end for 5-Rat. Because they waste their next set of spells. If they aren't getting a 4 or 5-man wipe, even, I want to say, if they're not killing the Leshrac in this next Chrono, they will lose buildings in tow. Something is going to be at cost here with how high level up and how strong KXY has been able to turn his hero into. Okay, a little bit of a pause. Breaks the tension up here, but Yuma also just has a Hex. So he is currently baiting KXY right now. Little do they know that these are just 2 cores sitting behind here, but it's also the full 5-man of SG. We'll have to see. 5-Rat still doing a very good job of sitting around their high grounds here, but that's where Roche is just going to funnel everybody in, and maybe that's going to be their big opportunity.
And unfortunately, this was the concern that we sort of listed as being the primary one when we saw the final draft from the 5-Rat Forest staff side. We were looking at Kits on the Storm as being someone who could still make some plays, but then you had to worry because if we get into late game, you can't afford to be entirely dependent on DNM and ET. From the way that they're posturing, it sure as hell seems like they're entirely dependent on DNM.
And well, then what can you do? Just let them have it. I mean, this next Roche, I don't think you can afford to honestly give it over. And I think the Aegis carrier for SG would probably just be KXY at this point. I don't really think that they can kill Yuma, or at least they can't kill him easily. It's really, I think the beginning of the end here for them is if Yuma queues up a Satanic after this Hurricane Pike for his Falcon Blade. I mean, every single item slot on Clinks is just so brutally useful. Really, he's just never been forced around. There's no evasion he has to deal with. There's no hero he really cares too much about silencing, aside from maybe the Storm, but that's why he's got the Hex. Like, Yuma's just doing everything perfectly right now.
He has played a very slow and very patient game, but it is starting to pay off now. 5-1-3. So, you know, that's honestly still a pretty good kill count considering he's been very much farm oriented throughout the majority of this game, but win or lose ET, that stat line is going to be jumping up pretty significantly because there's no way he's not involved at the very heart of these upcoming fights.
Oh, and that's also where Yuma 25, it's coming, and then oh, somebody's dying. It is one of the best 25s in the entire game, just pretty much doubling the damage that Burning Barrage does. Just not fair. Here we go. WR's in the chat. Roche has just respawned. Gonna be either the beginning of the end of the game for 5-Rad, or this is them making that turnaround happen, but they're gonna need something huge. Refresher Shard in the pit as well. So everything is gonna be laid out here.
Oh. Boys, what are we pinging? Why is this happening? What do you... Lots of pings. Might just be testing response time at this point, because actually some of the pings are on top of the location where 5-Rad are, so just kind of trying to scout them out a little bit here as the game does get resumed, and SG are going to push their way forward just a bit. Nothing too serious just yet. Ooh, okay, that's a little bit more serious. They dropped the ward down, so they really are trying to see, hey, who wants to come farm the creep wave? Not you. Oh no, that's a problem. Oh, you couldn't have found a better target. DNM also does not have any buyback here, so this is going to go straight to high ground. And what can 5-Rad even do? They could slow this down, I guess, but they have to slow it down without committing any of their major spells, otherwise you won't even be able to take a fight when the Faceless Void does respawn. And
yeah.
how do you do this?
And despite, of course, being able to Ice Path and slow down Yuma, he gets purged, the glyph's been used, now KXY is up, now the Leshrac, who doesn't care about being stunned, his ability is just going to be something that happens regardless. You're just going to start pushing in here, and there is nothing you can do. This is at least going to be one set here. Of course, they don't want to overextend out of fear of the buyback, and this is where they would buy back, but...
Well, they're going to force it anyway. AB1 had to buy back. They are getting some good damage onto KXY, but there's going to be the Guardian Angel. LTH telekinesis is his teammate and pulls him out. But they did end up losing Oscar. AB1 goes down in exchange. That's a dieback from the Jakiro, but they hold their base, CT, but this is what I was sort of afraid of. You held the line, but Jakiro's dead with no buyback. You used Tombstone and Golem. You threw a lot of your spells out there, so cool. DNM is alive, but he returns to now a definitively defensive situation.
Yeah, and this is where you have to make one of those impossible calls. Do we smoke without Flesh Golem, with 2 of our BKBs down on cores, to try and get to this Roche with our Faceless Void? Or do we say this is too hard? And they are going to traipse through all of this SG vision in an effort to make their way to the pit. And it's not the fastest thing in the world. Yuma is slowly but surely getting by it, though. And they might just look at KXY instead. He's even just baiting his life right now, saying that, okay, kill me if you can, because the Roche is going down. And he's still getting stunned up quite heavily in Yuma.
Quickly, yeah.
Oh, but it's too late.
Stolen Ice Path just stunned him.
Again.
If that Ice Path doesn't come in from LTH, they have the timing to contest it. Instead, the Rubik shuts it all down, and Well, who took what? Aegis, actually everything was picked up by Yuma. So we'll see if he redistributes any of the spoils there. Although, to be honest, realistically speaking, he could keep all of this ET and you'd probably still feel okay with it.
Yep, and that's
That's a
your
lot of
third
hexes.
hex. Yep, picked up by SG. So, hey, Lincoln's boy, show for 1 second. Oh, well, we've got extras. We've got stuff in the reserve here at this point, and Oscar even picks up the refresher shard. So, yeah, this is a very scary game. SG just turned everything around. And okay, another pause for the FPS drop, but hey, Yuma's 25 is pretty good. Well, so is KXY's. You're about to come up on those 25 Edict explosions, and then suddenly, oh no, this game is just snowballed so far out of control from 5-Rat. Out of really just a ton of small little plays, correct decisions, and positions where they simply weren't able to force their way onto buildings because of the heroes, because they're a team fight lineup, as opposed to just very standard lineup that SG were able to get. But that's where this next team fight, they can still win it. They can still do the wombo combo. It's Exodia, theoretically, if they hit everything, but
Right.
that's where SG are going to do everything in their power to not let that happen. And all they need to do is double blink, double hex. I mean, it just plays itself.
They have all the tools at their disposal. It's just gotta come down to execution. As long as they don't massively mess up that execution, that initiation ET, you get the feeling that they're right on the verge of victory here. But still gotta cross that finish line. They're not gonna cross it for you. You've got to make the play, and there's gonna be the start. Speed's gonna get hit up. Kits, though, comes in with the AoE Vortex, but Prod is able to hit up Yuma with the Heavenly Grace, so they're still gonna go for it. The Chrono is down. Yuma gonna lose his first life. They gotta protect this Tombstone, though. Can't really afford to let it go down, as KXY is gonna get bashed up. He's dropping low. He's able to activate the Bloodstone, though, so he's gonna fight his way through this. But Yuma gets locked down again. They just absolutely destroy him. The Kits will die as he was sort of being the distraction on the back line, but, well, they find the kills, but they need more. Kits buys back. Vortex in. Catching out too. DNM looking for the damage, but they do still get the Pulverize out from Oscar, so Kits is gonna get locked in place. He goes down.
Oh.
No money for buy, or not no money. He already used his buyback, so he is down. Oh boy, what do they have? Chrono's still down. They already used that. Speed's gonna lose his golem in 1 second. Merlin's got a Mystic Flare if you can somehow lock someone in place. But right now they're just focused on trying to slow up this push, and I think they're gonna force SG back, but ET, that's a scenario where Yuma dies twice. And SG didn't really care.
Yeah, and well, the push isn't done yet. This is the 25 on Leshrac. Hand him the cheese as well. Does force out his Bloodstone, but that's where I think the Leshrac, he's just so strong. He's large and in charge. Are going to lose the Wraith Pact, though, and that might be the call to back, or at the very least retreat towards a high ground. But yeah, that is why Flinks is not one of your premium Aegis carriers, because he comes back, he has no health from the Death Pact, there's no way for him to get a creep, just gets stunned to death. Also, of course, playing versus the Jakiro. Jakiro died so early on in that fight, but he was around long enough to make sure that that BKB didn't get off. And of course, you can't BKB while you're respawning, because even though you can BKB out of Yule's Ice Path, well, you're dead. No amount of mashing is going to get you out of that one.
Yeah, I'm sure he was trying anyway, just because he saw what was coming his way, but okay. They buy time. That's the important part for 5-Rat. They've got Chrono up in 20. They've got Kits up in 20. They've got Silences onto Oscar. That's going to force out a BKB. And LTH with that Shard Telekinesis is just here to make sure nobody gets a little bit too far forward. But SG, I don't know, ET. What's the game plan for them on their side, right? Their high ground push was slightly effective, but not perfect, and now they don't have Aegis, now they don't have Refresher Shard. Do they farm? Do they wait? Do they see a 5-Rat come to them? Or do they attempt to force another engagement?
I think, honestly, I want to see him make a play. I don't want to say, oh, they're just going to give up for next Roche, but I think at this stage, they are just going to play the waiting game, which will allow 5-Rat to claw back some real estate here and look for some more items. But they should also be very aware that DNM is still not increasing. He is still just a Chrono. Him as a right-clicker isn't really that scary. And I do think that SG really could just pose that same threat. Just make sure that Yuma isn't the one to just get everything dumped on him yet again. And really, I think that it was just a false sense of confidence from Yuma there. He was really playing such a tight Klinks game up until that point. And then he gets Aegis, and then he just throws his life away, throws positioning out the window. You know, not great stuff from him. But now, it's time to change it. And now, Five-Rat, they are so far out right now. And you see how far back DNM is playing. He is just trying not to be the first one to break here, even though they are still slim on their buybacks. But SG are also being a little bit indecisive. They don't want to throw. They don't want to give up their position either. So we're in this kind of wishy-washy area where nobody is really confident enough to actually make a play here. And in doing so, are letting DNM catch up a little bit on farm, but SG just seem like they're terrified of making that throw happen. And they're also just waiting, I think, for a lot of these wards to die so they can get some more vision. Because right now, they pretty much are playing in the dark. They've got a few wards down, but until Prada is really able to just have them straight up come back up, I think they've got one ward right now split between the Rubik and the Omni Knight. So they really are playing blind.
Yeah, not a whole lot of vision to work with. I do want to point out, though, for DNM, he's working his way towards a refresher. So even if he picks that up ET, this still isn't more damage. If you're double chronoing, maybe that is still enough if the magic damage comes in from the rest of the lineup to still win a fight, but DNM's not going to be able to do it really under his own power. As of right now, he is just leaning into being the setup guy, not really the one to actually find the kills.
Yeah, and that's also where, well, with that type of itemization, you hope that all your friends are, well, still alive. You know, if you end up in a situation where everybody's dead and it's just up to you to make it happen, well, then that might just be the game. Because you are banking on your teammates to kind of carry you out this stage on the Faceless Void. BNM has the impossible task of finding a perfect chrono, but that's where the rest of the lineup also can't afford to get picked off and die without buyback. Because everybody is necessary at this stage. I mean, look over at speed, you know? 6.5k gold, holding on for dear life. Really loves the Soul Ring.
Yeah, he's been holding on to that. He is, well, he's queued up an Aeon disc at this point, so not sure if he wants to really buy that out, because he's kind of keeping an eye on his buyback at this point, but he's getting to the point where he's going to be able to have both. We'll see what he does then. In the meantime, Yuma just got spotted. They'll pull him in. They've got the Mystic Flare. They've got the Chronosphere. The Guardian Angel is coming through, but it's not enough. Yuma gets taken down. That is a kill that they have literally been waiting minutes for ET, but they got it. But now they need to defend themselves. The rest of the lineup's coming in. Yuma has fought back. He is going to try to link up with his teammates as quickly as he can. And if you're Five-Rat, can you afford to take this fight anymore? You used the Chrono already. They might just have to back off.
No, and, well, they have buyback on the Jakiro. They have buyback not on the Skyreth Mage, but they're looking to just push you. They want, at the very least, Glyph, at the most, the entire game here, because they're looking to Mega Z right now.
Speed's going to step forward, trying to help out, trying to defend this, but he's going to get hexed. The Ascetic Cap popped, but it doesn't really do a crazy amount of good. He's still forced to fall back. Maybe one's going to buy back, though. They're looking to force this fight. They want to get down on KXY. Can they take him? Oh, my God. No, they can't. Jesus. They're gone. They're all just gone. Buybacks that were remaining are going to be used, but DNM still has no chrono. Kits is down, and with the Skyreth Mage out as well, you're not going to have any magic damage to throw out, even if you do manage to find somebody, and I mean, that might just be it.
Yeah, they break the silence on a one-man chrono where he just buys back, and, well, that's your dieback there. You all stack up. You all just die to the Burning Barrage. And, yeah,
GG.
That is going to be the game. But, man, didn't expect the Klings to just buy back there and say, oh, you don't have any of your abilities. Yeah, this is it. But, I mean, Yuma, he already had enough gold to play around with in this game, and knowing that was the only way to die, I mean, it was a silence that almost